Divorce Survival Lab, the mental battle, part 3, phase 3, setting aside intense emotions and difficult thoughts. Right? Setting aside intense emotions and difficult thoughts. So what? So why? So they don't overwhelm you and you're essentially paralyzed, or you have a nervous breakdown, or you go into panic mode, or you collapse, or anything that strong emotions and difficult, persistent thoughts can do. So, thus far, if you've looked at the 2 earlier videos, if not, that's fine. I can essentially give them in a nutshell for you. You've reframed the experience you're in divorce. Quite likely, if you're within the majority norm, you're a husband, you were a good guy, you were all in, you didn't have a plan B, you were all in for the sake of your wife, your marriage, your family, your kids. You're not the accommodating, content husband anymore. That happy wife, happy life nonsense. You've realized something and you need to reframe the experience. I'm in a fight. She's not my friend. I'm in a fight, potentially for how the next 5 years of my life in a meaningful way is going to look. I've reframed my experience. Stage 1 of the mental battle. I am in a fight. She's not my friend. You've built in pillars of stability. You've sewn it up, essentially. Sleep, eat, work. So, sleep, eat, work. You've done that battlefield triage that you need to stabilize the body, to stabilize your mind, your heart, so that you can now engage in the mental battle that is more than certain going to come. Divorce, the bottom falling out of your life, turns your head and your heart and your soul, however you want to frame it, into a house of mirrors. Regret, anger, despair, it comes in waves. It seems to come chaotically because the bottom has just fallen out and you've likely been betrayed. And now this emotional life that you're experiencing is is your soul's effort to shake off what's happening and to find a piton, like rock climbers use a peg in the rock that you can hang on to for dear life so that you don't fall into complete despair, apathy, nihilism. And so, what are some resources and rationale for setting aside difficult emotions and difficult thoughts? Compartmentalization. Now, in our limp-wristed feminist age, you might hear compartmentalization and think, "Oh, my therapist told me not to do that. I shouldn't ignore my feelings. That's unhealthy. I need to feel what I'm feeling." Why? Why? Says who? Your emotions are something you're experiencing. They're not a fact. They're not a truth claim. They're not actually giving you any data necessarily about the situation you're going through. To keep the battlefield imagery going, your emotions and difficult thoughts are not a reliable source of battlefield intelligence. If you pay attention to them, you could have a nervous breakdown. You could go into panic mode. You could be driven to just be paralyzed in your situation and not act and decide when you need to act and decide on things. Compartmentalization is not only justifiable, it's healthy and normal in this situation. You're creating containers for things that you're unsure about the reliability of. And you've recognized, I need to keep moving ahead. I'm in a fight. I'm stabilizing my body, sleep, eat, work. I don't know what to do with this stuff. And so, as best I can, I'm not going to allow these intrusive things to dictate where I'm going. I'm in control of them in the same way that I'm in control of my own body, my own day, my own plans, the structure I'm going to give to rebuilding my life. And so that's the mindset you need to adopt. These intrusive thoughts could be hecklers at, at your comedy show, right? And given enough time, you will be able to laugh about some of this stuff. But this discipline is like your mental armor. You're gearing up for the fight, and you're putting an impenetrable wall between you and potential collapse, potential nervous breakdown. That's what this is for, because the reality is, especially once you get 9 months, a year, more, several years out, like me or other men might tell you, is many of the intense emotions you're having in this moment right now, many of the difficult thoughts that seem persistent and like they're never going to go away, and they're going to dictate how you're going to feel about yourself and your life and your future and your kids and what your marriage was and everything else for an eternity. 9 months later, a year later, in terms of battlefield imagery, those are like an illusion that just evaporates on the edge of the battlefield. What you thought was, a fully armed battalion coming at you, throwing grenades, guns blazing, ready to just go scorched earth over everything, was just your soul at a point of desperation, shaking off what it didn't know how to deal with because of the intensity of what you're going through. Right? They're apparitions, they're phantoms. Right? Time will be your friend. If something is important enough to feel and to think, you will re-feel it. You will rethink it later on down the line. Compartmentalization is how you could very well survive in it and create a better situation for yourself by not panicking and not giving in to these emotions and these difficult thoughts. Guard against them. Connect and talk to people if you need, but this is how you move ahead. How do you deal with difficult thoughts and emotion? In one sense, you don't. You wait, and then 9 months later, a year later, see what remains. Oh, and guess what? Now you're in a better place in terms of a routine, your divorce being finalized or at least along the way, seeing your kids, being more established in your work and your routine. Now you're able to actually better deal with intense thoughts and feelings that have remained because you did what you needed to do now to survive. Lament versus complaint. Lament versus complaint. This is directly piggybacking almost as a qualifier on the last video about setting aside and compartmentalizing uh, difficult, intense emotions and difficult, persistent thoughts. Okay. There are going to be things that you feel and things that you think that are not easily set aside and contained to be dealt with at a later stage. They are these overwhelming emotions. Usually there's always one or two. These are these overwhelming thoughts. Usually there's always one or two. And the reality is, if you have good community, which is a necessity for a man, especially post divorce, if you have good community of people that love, respect, and trust you, if you have close family members that you can talk with, the reality is good community is actually going to introduce an opportunity for you to hamstring yourself when it comes to intense emotions and difficult thoughts. And I say that carefully because you don't want to isolate yourself from community, but you also don't want to perpetually vent and complain because that's essentially going to leave you living in a toxic swamp, and it's not going to propel you forward because lament and complaint are distinctly different. So let's define these so we can potentially avoid them. A complaint is a public spectacle where you have a captive audience for whatever reason, right? They're too good natured to change the subject or to stop you, or they love you so much they'll just give you space and they have a certain level of bandwidth to hear you just vent and rant and say stuff that an otherwise normal conversation wouldn't come out because they know how intense it is what you're going through really is, and so they're giving you space, which is loving and kind and compassionate of them. But don't take advantage of it, because the reality of a complaint is it is clear evidence that you're not only not over something that meant to harm or set you back or frustrate you or destroy you. You're not over that thing that meant to harm you. And you're not even starting to get over that thing that meant to harm you, but you're essentially holding on to it and are possessed by it in a strange way, where you have to keep rehashing it. You have to keep talking about it. You have to keep getting affirmed and to getting approval of others and to getting the eyes and the listening ears and the sympathetic follow-up questions so that you feel whole and that you feel worthy. It's a sign of I'm not over it and I'm deeply insecure about something about myself that this divorce and the bottom coming out of my life is revealing. If I continue to complain about this, I'm going to circle the drain and I'm going to sink. And it's not going to be good for anybody. It's going to slow down my process of healing and moving forward, because a complaint is essentially everybody everybody has a judgmental narrative about their lives, about what they've gone through, about what they're currently going through, and what they predict will happen in their future. Everybody has a judgmental narrative. Just get over that. You're human. It's either my fault, or it's their fault, or it's God's fault, or it's just the fallen circumstances of this life and this world that led to it. Everybody has a judgmental narrative. Now, what you do with that is critical. If you complain about it, you're going to circle the drain and potentially damage relationships if you won't let up about it. A lament is distinctly different. And I'll get spiritual at this point, although you can put it into practice without that element, I suppose. I believe lament is done privately. You're alone when this happens. It's done privately at the gracious invitation of the God who has made you in his image, when he knows, and he knows now that you know, I've reached a point where what I'm going through feels absolutely unbearable. And and I have to process it. I have to release it. I have to somehow let it go, and I can't. And I can't. So God help me. That's in a nutshell a lament. It still has a judgmental narrative about what's going on. It's still just as intensely, and maybe more intensely, because it's safer to let it all out in your bedroom alone or on the couch alone than it is with even people you implicitly trust in every way. But use lament privately as a release valve so that negative thoughts and emotions don't overwhelm you. Lament is a sign that you're beginning to get over something. You're beginning to process something. You're beginning to heal from something. It's distinctly different from a complaint in pretty much every conceivable way and feature, even though the content of what you're expressing might be identical. But it's going to force you to actually deal with it without an echo chamber, without actually seeing sympathetic eyes and having a physical voice tell you, oh, that's so hard, poor baby. And I don't say that disparagingly. What you're going through might be the most difficult thing you ever go through in your life. And so take account of that fact, but also recognizing that lament is going to push me to be a better and a stronger man, because complaint is essentially allowing me to stay hamstrung in insecurity and things that I'm unwilling to get over. Lament, on the other hand, is going to address the real reason why I want to complain. And it isn't so much as what I'm going through, but the me that I presently am, who I am going through it. I have insecurities. I have some sort of attachment or need to feel justified in this way that life actually can't give me. God, I believe, can give you. Life can't give me this. And so lament is your resource when it can't be contained, it can't be compartmentalized, and I don't want to keep complaining or venting about it because I'm just going to circle the drain and I'm not going to address why. Why am I insecure about this situation? Why is it so persistent and difficult? Why does it feel like it's possessing me? Well, you have some soul work to do. You have some internal landscaping to do. And lament is that release valve that will allow you to pour out what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking in a way that is isolating in some sense. But I had this judgmental narrative about life, and it's causing these feelings and it's causing these emotions. This is the circumstance I'm in, but it's revealing something about my own character and who I am in it. I'm a feeling, thinking, made in the image of God creature, and this sucks. So lament, don't complain. All right, I hope that was helpful, brothers. Thanks for listening.